Here are the stories shaping the world this morning and why they matter. Russia has carried out a large-scale missile and drone attack on Kyiv, badly damaging residential areas and other sites across the Ukrainian capital, while officials in Ukraine renewed their appeal for stronger air defenses. Kyiv officials said more than 50 locations were hit by missiles, drones, or falling fragments, with damage reported across 8 districts. A 9-story residential building was badly damaged, and Ukrainian officials reported at least 18 people killed and more than 80 wounded in the capital. Other reporting put the death toll at least 17. In Kharkiv, officials said Russian glide bomb attacks killed a 15-year-old boy and wounded 32 people. Russia's defense ministry said it had targeted military and energy facilities in Kyiv and elsewhere, calling the strikes retaliation for Ukrainian attacks on civilian infrastructure inside Russia. For families in Kyiv, the immediate reality was shattered homes, long nights underground, and emergency crews moving from site to site. Authorities said underground stations in Kyiv would remain open as shelters for as long as needed. President Volodymyr Zelensky asked for U.S. licenses that would allow Ukraine to produce Patriot missiles domestically, arguing that air defense remains one of the most urgent needs for protecting civilians. The European Union was also preparing further sanctions pressure on Moscow. Behind the diplomacy and military statements are residents trying to salvage apartments, workers repairing power and water systems, and parents trying to keep children safe through another morning of war. In Venezuela, the death toll from twin earthquakes has risen above 2,000, as rescuers continue searching for survivors, and hospitals struggle under enormous pressure. The earthquakes struck on June 24th, and both were reported at magnitudes above 7. As of Wednesday, one report put the death toll at 2,395, while another said nearly 2,300 people had died. More than 11,000 people were reported injured, and the United Nations estimated that 50,000 people remain missing. Amid the loss, there was one moment of relief in La Guaira, where Jordanian relief workers found a 3-year-old boy alive on Tuesday after 6 days under rubble. Venezuela's Ministry of Communication and Information called the rescue the miracle in La Guaira. Interim President Delcy Rodriguez declared 7 days of mourning. Aid agencies said food, clean water, and shelter are now the most urgent needs, especially for families sleeping outside damaged homes or searching for relatives. Luciani Hospital in downtown Caracas treated more than 400 earthquake victims, while hospitals across affected areas reported shortages of medicine, doctors, and healthcare workers. International aid is helping fill some gaps, but the scale of injury and displacement is testing a health system already under strain. For ordinary Venezuelans, the crisis is about much more than destroyed buildings. It is about access to safe drinking water, somewhere dry to sleep, and medical care close enough and supplied enough to save lives. Japan and India are moving to deepen their economic and security partnership after Japanese Prime Minister Hakai Sanayan met Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi. The summit, held during Sanayan's first visit to India, focused on economic security, private sector innovation, investment, technology, and defense cooperation. A welcome ceremony was held on Thursday, and the two leaders announced private sector investment plans worth about $12 billion. They also released 120 cooperation documents between Japanese and Indian companies, including investments totaling about 2 trillion yen. Japan's broader goal is to expand investment in India to about 10 trillion yen over the next 10 years. Modi called for more Japanese investment and technology transfers, including in artificial intelligence and semiconductors. India is also seeking closer security cooperation as China's maritime activity increases in the region. Sanayan said the two countries share many goals and should strengthen complementary cooperation. For workers and families, the practical effects could be significant if the investment produces factories, research centers, supply chain jobs, and more reliable technology infrastructure. The challenge will be making sure major corporate agreements translate into stable employment, skills training, and regional development, rather than benefits concentrated only in a few large firms. The summit reflects a wider shift in Asia, where governments are trying to build resilient supply chains and reduce overdependence on any single market. Supporters of Myanmar's detained pro-democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi are raising concerns about her welfare after the military-backed administration said she had been moved to house arrest but did not disclose where she is being held. Aung San Suu Kyi has been detained since Myanmar's military seized power in a 2021 coup. She was later convicted of corruption and other charges in proceedings held under military rule. The administration said she had been moved to a designated residence, but the lack of information about the location has deepened concern among supporters in Myanmar and abroad. People interviewed in Yangon in Thailand said they want clear proof that she is safe. One supporter said she hoped Aung San Suu Kyi had gained at least a little freedom. A Myanmar spokesperson said Tuesday that her health condition is very good and that she receives medical checkups. The current administration was inaugurated this year after a disputed election, and the move is widely seen as an attempt to show a more conciliatory stance amid international criticism. For families in Myanmar, the question is larger than one leader's detention. Since the coup, many communities have faced instability, repression, and economic hardship. Human rights groups and pro-democracy supporters say transparency about political detainees remains essential if the country is to move toward any credible process of accountability and peace. Diplomacy over Iran continued in Doha, where U.S. officials met Qatar's prime minister as regional talks focused on Iran, the Strait of Hormuz, and a possible ceasefire memorandum. President Trump said the denuclearization of Iran was moving along well after what he called very good meetings. Vice President J.D. Vance said the Strait of Hormuz was discussed, and he noted that oil was at $68 and gas prices were starting to come down. The Strait of Hormuz remains a vital route for global energy shipments, which means any diplomatic progress can have a direct effect on fuel prices, shipping costs, and household budgets far beyond the region. Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Garibabadi met Qatari leaders, according to Iranian state-run media. Iranian media also said Iran, Qatar, and Pakistan took part in a trilateral meeting. Garibabadi said no direct talks were held with the United States and that negotiations on a final agreement had not yet begun. He said the timing and venue were still being coordinated. Qatar said a first round of indirect U.S.-Iran talks in Doha made positive progress. Further discussions were expected after the funeral of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. For people across the region, the stakes are immediate. The possibility of lower tensions, fewer disruptions to trade, and more room for humanitarian and economic stability if diplomacy holds. Iran has begun funeral preparations for Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei after reports that he was assassinated by the United States and Israel. The public funeral was scheduled to begin Saturday, with burial planned for the following Thursday. The reported killing, dated February 28th in the accounts now being cited, has added urgency to diplomatic efforts already underway in Qatar. Indirect U.S.-Iran talks were expected to resume after the funeral. For Iran, the funeral is not only a moment of state ceremony, but also a moment of political uncertainty, with institutions preparing for transition while the public absorbs the news. The timing matters because regional diplomacy had already been focused on de-escalation, the Strait of Hormuz, and the possibility of a ceasefire memorandum. Any leadership change in Tehran can affect how quickly negotiations resume and how much room diplomats have to compromise. For ordinary Iranians, the questions are practical as well as political. Whether tensions will raise prices, disrupt travel, increase security controls, or affect access to basic goods. Governments in the region will be watching closely, but families will feel the consequences most directly if instability spreads. Qatar's role as a mediator remains important, and the expectation that talks may resume after the funeral offers at least one path for keeping communication open at a dangerous moment. In Japan, a seismic expert is warning that the risk of a large earthquake may have risen in the country's northeast after a magnitude 7.2 quake struck off the coast of Iwate Prefecture on June 25th. Professor Uchida Naoki of the University of Tokyo's Earthquake Research Institute said slow slip events may have influenced the quake. Slow slip is a type of movement along a fault that can unfold gradually rather than in one sudden rupture. Uchida said the slow slip event area may be expanding off the Tohoku region and warned there could be a jolt of equal or larger scale. He stressed that the region is prone to earthquakes and urged people to remain prepared. The warning is not a prediction of an exact time or place, but it is a reminder for households, schools, hospitals, and local governments to check emergency supplies and evacuation plans. In northeastern Japan, many families remember the devastating 2011 earthquake and tsunami, and preparedness is part of everyday public safety. Constructive steps can make a difference. Securing furniture, confirming family meeting points, keeping water and medicine available, and making sure elderly residents and people with disabilities are included in local plans. The message from experts is calm but serious. Japan cannot prevent earthquakes, but preparation can reduce injuries, speed rescue work, and help communities recover faster. In South Africa, migrants are facing xenophobic attacks, looting, and pressure to leave, prompting countries including Malawi to organize repatriation for their citizens. Ahmadi Hassani left Malawi in February last year and found work in South Africa, but returned after the attacks began. He said migrants were hit by cars and that he used to run away from police. Another woman fled with her 8-month-old child while her husband remained stranded in Durban. A Durban shop owner reported more than 130,000 euros worth of stolen goods after a looting attack, and 19 employees at the shop, not all of them migrants, were left jobless. Thousands of people joined Tuesday's largest protests against illegal immigration in South Africa in 2 decades. One protester said anyone without documents or papers must go back home. The anger reflects real pressures over jobs, housing, and public services, but attacks on migrants often punish people who are themselves workers, parents, tenants, and small business owners trying to survive. They also damage local economies by closing shops and costing South Africans and migrants alike their jobs. The challenge for the South African government is to enforce immigration law while protecting human rights and public safety. Countries organizing repatriation now face the task of helping returnees who may arrive home with no savings, no belongings, and no clear way to rebuild. Torrential rain has caused flooding and landslides in southwestern and western Japan, with authorities warning residents to stay alert because rivers remain swollen and the ground has been loosened. The Japan Meteorological Agency said rain clouds formed in northern Kyushu and brought downpours through Thursday morning. Flooding occurred from the Chikugo River in and around Oguni Town in Kumamoto Prefecture, and landslides were reported in multiple locations. Even after heavy rain eases, the danger can continue because saturated slopes may collapse and rivers can rise quickly. Authorities urged people in affected areas to remain alert and follow local evacuation guidance. For families, the immediate concerns are safe shelter, transportation, school closures, and access to medical care or supplies if roads are blocked. For farmers and small businesses, flooding can destroy crops, equipment, inventory, and income in a matter of hours. Japan has extensive disaster response systems, but repeated heavy rain events are putting pressure on local governments and emergency workers. The practical advice remains straightforward. Avoid riverbanks, do not drive through flooded roads, and move early if officials issue evacuation information. The constructive side is that early warnings, local shelters, and community preparedness can save lives. In places like Kyushu, where heavy rain and landslides are recurring hazards, timely communication and neighborhood support are often as important as national response. Japan's government spent about 290 billion yen, or roughly $1.8 billion, on fuel subsidies in May as it moved to cap pump prices during the Iran conflict. The program included payments to oil wholesalers for regular gasoline, with the goal of keeping the nationwide average pump price around 170 yen, or just over $1 per liter. Financial assistance also covered diesel, heavy oil, and kerosene. Jet fuel was subsidized at 40% of the gasoline rate. About $7.1 billion was available to fund payments when the conflict began. For families and workers, fuel costs show up quickly in monthly budgets, especially for commuters, delivery drivers, farmers, fishers, and small businesses that rely on transport. Keeping prices stable can reduce pressure on household spending and help prevent sudden increases in food and goods costs. But subsidies also raise policy questions. They can be expensive, and if they continue for long periods, they may slow the shift toward cleaner transport and energy efficiency. Japan's approach reflects a balancing act many governments now face, protecting people from short-term price shocks while still planning for long-term energy security and climate goals. The immediate effect is relief at the pump. The longer-term challenge is making sure public money supports resilience, not just temporary stability during each new international crisis. German prosecutors say Ukrainian state authorities were behind the 2022 explosions that crippled the Nord Stream pipelines under the Baltic Sea, a major development in a case that has carried political and economic consequences across Europe. The pipelines were built to supply Russian gas to Germany, and the blasts helped mark a turning point in Europe's energy relationship with Moscow. A Ukrainian national has been charged over the attack and is accused of coordinating the pipeline operation. The suspect has denied responsibility. The explosions damaged infrastructure that had been central to German energy policy for years, and they came at a time when Europe was already moving to reduce reliance on Russian gas after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. For ordinary people, the broader fallout was felt through energy bills, industrial costs, and government efforts to secure alternative supplies. Workers in energy-intensive industries, Renters facing heating costs, and small businesses all had a stake in how quickly governments could stabilize markets. The prosecutor's statement adds a new layer of tension between accountability, wartime alliances, and Europe's energy transition. Germany's legal process will now be closely followed, and the suspect's denial means the case is still contested. What is clear is that the Nord Stream blasts reshape debates over security, infrastructure protection, and the need for a more resilient energy system. Follow for a daily world brief. Sources are linked in the description. That's the world as Minerva saw it.